Howdy y'all, welcome in. This video isn't necessarily meant to be a tutorial. Rather, I just wanted to go over the steps I took to get my streaming avatar set up in Warudo. Plus explain some of the issues I encountered with the solutions I implemented. If you're having issues setting up Warudo on your own, this video might be able to help. Maybe. So, what is Warudo? If you don't know, Warudo is an avatar animation software specifically designed for 3D VTuber live streaming. That's taken directly from their documentation. Essentially, it's another 3D VTubing software akin to VSeeFace. I'll link the documentation in the video description, but as of right now, it's a little limited. It serves more as a surface level descriptor for the program itself and certain aspects of it. The documentation does a pretty good job at setting you on the right track for getting your project up and running. Just make sure you have the right version of Unity installed. As an example, at the time of recording, it is a different version than that of VRChat coming from there. I opted for option 1 here, where the project template was downloaded, and I did run into a couple issues with it. Those issues is actually what prompted my want to make this video. Other than encountered issues, which I'll get into soon, it's very straightforward. Unpack your template into a folder and open the project with Unity. From here, it's just a matter of getting all your dependencies into the project. Here I import my custom shaders, namely Poyomi, and any assets I may need. I highly recommend if you're transitioning your setup from a previous program, such as VSeeFace or even VRChat, export your stuff from your previous Unity projects for import into your Warudo project. That way you can save time using already defined materials and dynamic bones or spring bones. For this project, I'm just going to import the FBX file that I use for VRChat. To my understanding, there are ways to use an existing VRM file instead, and the existing components will be retained and used in Warudo, but personally I don't particularly enjoy the VRM format, and converting avatars to VRM was my least favorite part of creating a VSF avatar file. And after some time of setting up my FBX with my materials and dynamic bones from my VSeeFace project, we're more or less ready to start attempting to get the avatar into Warudo. One thing I do want to mention, the Warudo SDK includes placeholder files for specific assets, such as dynamic bones. So if you want to use those components, you will need to purchase the asset and import it yourself. Else you'll find these errors right here. If you're importing the asset into the template, you may need to manually remove the placeholder files as they may interfere. You'll see an error in Unity if the issue is affecting you. And with that, we're ready to export. I do recommend making duplicates of your model's hierarchy for reasons I will explain in a bit. Plus, it's never a bad idea to have a backup. Creating .warudo character files, or character mods as Warudo names them, is pretty simple. Just define a new mod in the Warudo SDK, select your model's root game object, and in the menu select Setup Character. Once the character setup is complete, multiple new files will be created, and if all went well, you can now select the Build Mod button in the SDK menu, and it'll output a usable Warudo file. It is unstated in the documentation, but it seems your character model will need to be in T-pose before the SDK's character setup. If your character is in A pose, for example, rotation normalization will fail, resulting in your arms being locked behind your back in Warudo. I encountered this a couple times, and putting my character manually in D pose in Blender and then re-exporting the FBX fixed this issue. Before I delve deep into the intricacies of the program itself, I do want to go over some nuances with the Warudo format that I wish were better explained in the documentation. First off, let me explain why I recommend making a duplicate of your hierarchy. When you run the automatic setup using the Setup Character SDK button, Warudo will do a couple of things to your hierarchy. Firstly, it'll normalize the rotations of all enabled game objects under your hierarchy to 0. That includes meshes, bones, etc. Anything underneath the hierarchy. Secondly, it'll replace your entire hierarchy with a prefab. If a game object is disabled in Unity and the mod is built, the SDK does not normalize the rotations of it. When the game objects don't get normalized, this happens. The non-normalized meshes are attempting to bind themselves to the now rotation offsetted bones, resulting in a distorted mesh. If you have an object on your character that relies on its local rotation for animations, for example, such as my hairpin here, you'll have to remove the prefab from your avatar and instead create a prop mod for the object with the Warudo SDK. In general, I would advise against having an animation controller on your model when you're setting up your mod. But if you know what you're doing, it is a good way to implement a prop-specific animation. For characters, there are overlay animations options available via the Warudo program, which would be the recommended route. Initially, I wanted to use Warudo's character animation mod to essentially reuse my VSF Avatar Unity animation toggles. However, that didn't go very well. Warudo animations seem to primarily be used for bones. Things like poses, dances, etc. Not really meant for toggles, unfortunately. Thankfully, Warudo has a very robust expression system. Notable features include a layering system for additive expressions, adjusting and constraining blend shapes, toggling game objects, and modifying material properties. Compared to Unity animations, the only thing I believe you can't do is modify individual game object positions and rotations. Those seem to be allocated to character animation mods. And as of right now, the UI is extremely bare bones. You can't copy or duplicate expression settings for easy editing. The last thing I want to touch on is the Warudo blueprint system. By design, everything can be modified to a certain extent. As a brief example, I want to go over adding hybrid lip syncing to Warudo's face tracking, as out of the box the face tracking purely relies on camera input. I'm using MediaPipe here, as I find it does a much better job at tracking my face while utilizing the ARKit face tracking blend shapes built in on this model. For those curious, this is the Leona base model by Eliza. I'll link their Gumroad in the description. I do recommend you try anything you're able to and just see what works best with you as far as the tracking goes. You can fine-tune the blend shape mapping here as well, adjusting how easily the program triggers a shape. Implementing hybrid lip syncing is actually pretty easy. We just need to go into the pre-made face tracking template, import the lip sync component, and find a place to integrate it among the spaghetti. From here, we just reroute the flow such that the shaped list is flowing in and out of the lip sync component. And all that's left to do is populate the fields. Select a microphone, calibrate your voice with either the default or custom phonemes, and input the corresponding blend shapes. Unfortunately, there's no blend shape dropdown here, so make sure you're inputting the correct blend shape names. My microphone was picking up a lot of static noise, so I put it through a noise gate via voice meter. I've tried to use the video broadcast as well here, but I found it makes the mouth movements lag a bit. Even now, I wouldn't really consider this perfect. And that's pretty much it. I kinda just wanted to put my thoughts about Warudo and the process I had gone through to get things all set up into a video. Just know that I've barely touched the surface of what can seemingly be achieved with this program, which is really exciting. I don't really make this type of long-form content, so it was a pretty interesting experience. I may make a follow-up video if I do anything interesting. Otherwise, if you like this type of content, please let me know. I'll put my socials in the description if you want to poke me or join my Discord or whatevs. I hope this video can help anyone who's struggling a bit with setting things up with Warudo. Again, it was quite an experience.